So now, blank slate to start assignment 4. What we want to do to start it is to understand what it is. And how can we do that? We can go to PhotoBucket. And we can look at the assignment. It's called the Cloud Creature Assignment. We can look at past student examples. And basically, you know how you'll look up at the sky and say, oh, look. That looks like a little creature. Right? Or that looks like, a bird. Or that kind of looks like a big lizard. So on and so on. What we're going to do is make a cloud creature version of our fantasy creature design. And we can use any kind of cloud textures we like. But the goal is for it to be equally believable as a cloud, as any cloud we would look up and see. So we're not trying to match the creature perfectly. We're just trying to suggest the creature in the clouds. So there's a lot of what's called closure in this assignment for the viewer, a lot of Gestalt theory, where they will fill in the gaps, right? So it's really abstracting the idea of our creature. Now, what's interesting about this project is it's mostly a compositing project because we are not painting the clouds. Instead, we are going to use cloud reference, and we will use it like our palette. And then we will take that cloud reference, and with clone stamp, and with smudge, and with the other tools we know, we will turn it into our creature. Okay, so this is what is required of us. What clouds look more believable? Well, they're ones that have a mixture of hard and soft edges, of opacity. We are going to paint in this project, but the only thing we're going to paint is the sky behind our clouds. Okay, so I'll show you how we do that. Super simple. So, let's give it a try. All we need to do to get started is to go back to assignment 2. And it actually doesn't matter if your assignment 2 folder is, or your assignment 2 project is perfectly finished and cut out or not. What I want you to open up in Photoshop is this PNG that you submitted. So I'm going to open that up in Photoshop. So the reason it needs to be the PNG of assignment 2 is so that it has an empty background, right? And we've talked about this before. It's like a little sticker of your creature, right? But what's nice about that is it's also big enough for printing. This is why we're not going to assignment 3 for this. So mine here is 16 by 20 inches by 350. It's huge, just because my reference was really big. Okay, now what I'm going to do is do a Google image search for big old clouds. Go to images. And so how are we going to define that? I guess I do mean big old clouds without the apostrophe. We're going to do tools, size, larger than. Because clouds are soft, we can get away with 6 megapixels. Okay? Now, we're mostly all going to be looking at the same things. You don't have to put in big old clouds. You can just put in clouds, and you'll get a lot more. But we're not going for this kind of thing. This just looks incredibly digital, right? But we'll be learning the same skills to do that kind of thing. But we want it to look more believable. We want it to look like this, but also, oh yeah, I can kind of see your creature in that. But notice some clouds are going to be big and thick and lit from above and have dark shadows underneath. Some are going to be really, really textured and further away. Some are going to be pulled out and thin. So there's lots of different textures you can play with. Some clouds just don't look realistic. And so why would you use them if even their reality doesn't look believable, right? But to start with, I want you to find one really big, nice, clear reference that we can kind of treat as the default cookie dough to cut our creature out of. And there are lots and lots of clouds, right? 8 megapixels or larger. Okay, so I found a few. Again, you want to make sure you view the image, because sometimes they're not really there. And when you view it, I want you to save a few of them. We're going to use one to start with. So once you've checked that they're good quality, save them to your desktop. So that one's really nice. I probably used that one like 3 times before. Cumulus Clouds, always helpful. These are interesting because these are backlit clouds. So notice they don't have a shadow on the bottom. They have shadows in the front. And they're coming from behind. And you want the largest version possible. Yeah, we're getting more and more. It can be, yeah. Oh, that's a nice one right there. All right, so I've got 3 I can start with for sure. Oh, I should have come back to here. Here we go. Okay, so I've got 4 I can work with, and of course there are going to be a lot more. But really I just need 1 to start with. So I'm going to minimize, and I'm going to take my really big cloud reference, and I'm debating whether to use this one, which is more stormy. And I kind of like that for my creature, because it's a wet and stormy kind of creature. Or I could stretch this one out. But that one's so light and airy. It's like that might be good for putting an afro on him or something. So I'm going to use this one. What do? I just click and drag. We're used to this by now. Drag and drop it onto my Photoshop file. And now, before I hit return to place it, I'm going to stretch it. I'm not going to try to match its proportions. I'm just going to stretch it out like dough, rolling it out, so that the entire cloud surface contains my character. Right? So if my character is on top of the cloud, all of him is covered by cloud. Okay? Now what do? You can move your creature layer on top of the cloud you brought in, which is still a smart layer, right? Then we're going to use the magic wand, and this is a skill that we've used a little bit before, but this is where I really need you to learn it. Right? We're going to use contiguous. Actually, no, we're going to uncheck contiguous, because maybe you have little cutouts in your creature. We're using the magic wand. We're on our creature layer. Remember, this is a transparent layer, and we're going to click on the empty space. Okay? And what that will do is select all the empty space around our creature. If he's not perfectly cut out, because it's assignment 2, that's okay. We can use, actually, it doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter. Right? Because it's going to be close to the shape of our creature, right? Close to the silhouette. Now what we're going to do, turn off that layer. So you just turn the eyeball off on your creature layer, and that leaves this selection, right? So what I want you to learn here, this is very important, that you can move selections between layers. So we use the creature layer, and we use the magic wand, I'll do it again, with contiguous unchecked. It doesn't even matter what tolerance we have, but the default is 32. And we click the empty space, right? But when I turn the layer off, the selection doesn't go away, because selections move between layers. The problem is I've selected the empty space around my creature, but what I want is to select the inside shape, like a cookie cutter. So what do? I go to Select, Invert, or Inverse Selection. Now I've selected the shape inside. And now I'm going to click on my cloud layer, which is a smart layer, right? So I can't edit it, but I can duplicate from it. And I'm going to hit Command J to duplicate and get a cutout of my creature's silhouette made out of cloud. So it's just like making a cookie cutter. All right, now I'm going to bring in some other clouds. And I'm going to do that in a slightly different way. First, I'm going to just bring them in. Notice I'm not growing my canvas because I don't need to for this project. I just bring them in and immediately hit return. Then I'm just going to roughly lasso around them. The clouds I think might be useful. And duplicate them and then delete the smart layer behind. We don't even need to keep these smart layers anymore. Okay? Let me turn on auto select here. Now, if I think this cloud's going to be helpful, probably for his stomach, right? First, I want to clean it up. So as I bring clouds in, I clean them up by using the magic wand, turning on contiguous, so it's only the outside, and selecting this blue. And again, it's practicing skills I want you to have that we've looked at before, right? And then, very important for this project, because clouds should not be sharp-edged like that, right? Because this kind of edge does not say cloud to anybody. Instead, they should be soft-edged. So how do we soften our selection? We use refine edge. And then we have it remember our settings so that we're growing our selection, we're smoothing it, we're feathering it, and we're growing it more than we have before. We're really going to cut into these clouds and soften them and feather them quite a bit because clouds are soft.
This is why are we using other clouds?
All right, so I hear the question, why are we using more than just the one cloud? And that's because this does not look believably like a cloud, right? It looks like a cutout of the cloud. It looks like a cutout of our creature. So we're going to use other clouds to composite on top and to build this. So for instance, this cloud can then be warped and moved and rotated to suggest the ear in a more cloud-like way. But it's hard to see it as a cloud yet because we don't have sky behind. So then another step is to make an empty layer, put it behind everything, and this is where for the first time we're going to paint something. So just make it really clear, I'll turn off the other layers for you. I'm on layer 3, I'm going to label it background sky. And instead of compositing in sky, which we could do, but it would have to be really large resolution, I'm going to paint my own. And instead of just painting it a solid color, I could just do edit, fill, color, and then pick a blue. Pick a nice sky blue. You know, that can work as a sky, but it looks kind of flat, right? So this is what I want us to do. I want us to use for the first time the gradient tool. So the gradient tool is underneath the eraser. It's the top tool in the drawer. Click on it, double click on it, and you'll get these options up here. Click on the drop down, click on the first box, and then, why isn't it giving me options? Yes, and you double click on it until you get this option window. So these are our gradient options. I don't want a red to black sky. What do I want? I want a light blue to a dark blue sky. So I'm going to pick a really pale blue, maybe with some yellow in it, and then I'm going to pick a deeper blue, still fairly grayed out, like that. And then I can play with another blue on the inside if I want. You can create any kind of gradation you want. And you can then move them, but you want it to look pretty even. And I like to keep it simple. So I'm going to keep that as my gradient setting. I say OK, and then this is how you paint with gradients. You simply click and drag in the direction you want it to grade.